Hello, my name is Han, and this is the Drones 101 Flight Fundamentals class. I've been working on drones since 2012, and I got my Part 107 Remote Pilot certification since it came out in 2016. I have a mechanical engineering degree with 6 years of aerospace experience, and I'm the founder of SensoFly, SoCal's drone training and services company located in Orange County. When it comes to drones, there's typically 3 different categories that I like to group them into. We have our consumer prosumer model here on the left side. Currently, the most recent model is the DJI Mini 4 Pro. In the middle, we have our professional line of drones, which is the Mavic 3 Pro, and then on the right side we have our cinematic and racing drone, the DJI Avata. So the differences come down to this. With the Mini 4 Pro, this is a small, light, and affordable drone, and it has most of the features that 90% of the pilots will need. So 4K camera at 100 frames per second, 48 megapixels, 34-minute flight times with the option of going to 47 minutes with the extended flight battery option. You can also fly over people because it is under 250 grams, and it has the ability to turn the camera 90 degrees for vertical video. In the middle, we have the Mavic 3 Pro, and the main difference between the Mini is that it has 3 separate cameras. This allows you to have 3 separate focal lengths at a wide, normal, and telephoto. You also have the ability for full camera control, which means shutter, aperture, ISO, as well as color grading. And finally, on the right side, we have the Avata. This is an FPV style drone. FPV stands for first person view, and this is an immersive experience where you can wear goggles and navigate this drone at very high speeds, also in tight indoor areas. In the United States, we have some operating rules to follow. If you are a commercial pilot, meaning you are getting compensated in some form, this requires you to have the Part 107 license. You need to fly at or below 400 feet above ground level in uncontrolled space, and if you are flying within controlled space, typically this will be airports, you need to request authorization. You also need to fly your drone within line of sight. You can have a visual observer to assist you, but they need to be next to you. So this means you can't have a daisy chain of visual observers spaced several hundred feet apart to stretch the scope of your visual line of sight. Visual observers are required for FPV pilots because they are wearing goggles, so there's no other way for them to have a line of sight with the drone. Also, never fly within national parks. Several state parks have also rules against drones, so please check accordingly. Yield to all manned aircrafts. And finally, you are permitted to fly over people, given if your drone is less than or equal to 250 grams and has no exposed rotating parts. This is typically going to be custom-made FPV drones. You can also fly at night, but you need to pass a test on the FAA's website, and you also need to mount a strobe that is visible at least 3 statute miles. You need to register your drone if it is between 0.55 pounds to 55 pounds or 250 grams to 25 kilograms. This is recreational or commercial use. Now, if you are using your drone commercially, then the lower limit does not apply anymore. So even if you have one of those smaller drones, you still need to register. And it's going to be $5 for 3 years. You can do so here at the FAA Drone Zone's website. And this is what it looks like. Once you log in, you'll have the ability to register with the serial number. And then in the end, you will receive a registration number that you can mount to the exterior of your drone. Also, remote ID has recently been rolled out. This is a digital license plate for your drone. So you're going to have to broadcast the registration number that you enrolled in the previous slide. It came into effect on September of 2023, but it is actually not enforced until March of 2024. So during this 6-month extension, it is time for you to make sure that you are comply so that come March, you are okay to go. So newer drones have this built in. Older or custom drones will need to include a separate module. So you can check your manufacturer to see if you have a remote ID module built in. For the drones that I mentioned in the previous slide from DJI, these all have remote ID capabilities, so you do not have to take any further steps. Any drone that is registered must comply with the remote ID rule. So, meaning if you have a drone that is less than 0.55 pounds and you're flying for recreational, you do not have to register, and therefore you do not have to worry about remote ID. But as soon as you register, then you do have to comply with the remote ID. So you can learn more about remote ID by going on the FAA's website right here, where they have more information about it, as well as some recommended modules. If anyone is familiar with manned flight, this is like Flight Radar 24, but for drones. Flight Radar 24 allows you to see a bunch of the flights that are happening around the world in a certain level of detail, including the wing tail number and the destination and takeoff location, altitude, flight speed. If you're a commercial pilot, you do need to get your Part 107 license, and this is a knowledge-based test that you take at one of the approved FAA centers. The different topics covered include regulations, airspace requirements, weather, loading performance, and operations. It's 60 questions, multiple choice, 3 choices per question. You need to pass with 70% or more. And if you do pass, you get a license card like you see right here, and it's good for 2 years. Every 2 years you can renew. Currently, you only need to take the test in person and pay for the first time around. When you go around and renew, then you can do so online for free through the FAA. We do provide Part 107 training and tutoring to help you prepare for this test. Note that this is purely knowledge-based. It does not test your ability to fly, so we still recommend that you actually learn some flight skills. In the meantime, if you're a recreational pilot, please go on the FAA's website and take the TRUST, which is the Recreational UAS Safety Test. This is a free 30-minute online course where you can receive a digital certificate like you see below, and it shows that you're a responsible pilot, and you can present this in case you are ever asked upon by the FAA or law enforcement. So this is the website where you can learn more about TRUST, and you can choose one of your online free test administrators. When it comes to checking airspace, you can use ALOFT Air Control. This is a free app, and this allows you to do some pre-flight planning like weather and airspace. But more importantly, check whether or not you're able to fly in a certain airspace. If you're in controlled airspace, you can request authorization directly within the app using LANT, which is the low altitude authorization and notification capability. And you can also use this to record flight records. Now, the FAA has their own app called Before You Fly. However, this is only used for checking airspace. You cannot request LANTs, and ultimately they just use ALOFT maps. So that's why I recommend you go directly to ALOFT Air Control. So ALOFT Air Control, this is the app. In here you can check that everything looks good. There is no color, which means that this is Class G airspace uncontrolled. you can follow the 400 feet above ground level rule. Now, if you go somewhere else and you plot a point, like if I place one right there, then you will see that it's within a colored space and it says this is Class C airspace. You'll also notice that there's numbers right here. So 300, 150, 0. This tells you the modified ceiling height from 400 feet. So this is controlled airspace. You're going to have to request approval. So we're going to come down here to the Lands tab right here. And here it's going to give you a box, but you can modify by dragging one of these corners right there and drawing out your actual flight path. So let's say, for example, I want to do this stadium right here. Then I'm just going to draw a flight path around that. I'm going to modify the corners like so. And then the green bar down here shows you how much you can fly up to and get automatically approved. If you go into the orange, then it's going to request further coordination, meaning someone has to review this. When it's auto approval, you can automatically do it right here now as the date and time, and you will receive authorization. So I'm going to agree and submit. And then you'll automatically get an email, which will pop up in just a sec right here. So you can see this is my email that gives me my authorization. If you request higher amounts, then you do need to give at least 72 hours advance notice. Initial planning. Before you leave the house, make sure you have the following equipment. You have the drone battery, which is charged, the drone controller charged, propellers, SD card. I have a habit of formatting it, make sure I have enough room for it. Camera filters, the charger, and optionally your phone if you're using that as your screen. Some controllers have a screen built in, so this is not going to be the case for you. On location, make sure that, again, if you're using your phone or iPad, you want to have that charged. You want to find an open area for return to home. This means no tree covers or power lines. This is your takeoff location. So the drone will record whatever your takeoff location as the emergency return to home. Also, go back into ALOFT and check that the weather conditions are good and the airspace is also clear. During flight, be mindful of your drone battery and always keep the drone within line of sight. So at 50%, I like to usually not go more than half a mile away. At 30%, I'm wrapping up the mission, starting the landing procedure, and by 20%, I like to have the drone on the ground. When it comes to accessories, there's a couple of things that I recommend. First and foremost is to get extra batteries. If you buy the Fly More package from DJI, it comes with 2 additional batteries, so you have a total of 3. This is enough for most people. But if you just buy the standard package, which just comes with 1 battery, I recommend you get at least 1 more battery, just because you're going to find that a lot of times things take longer than you expect, and battery times are not as long as the manufacturer advertised. Those numbers are always going to be under most optimal condition and flying the battery till it's basically dead. So that's not going to be realistic. So for example, my Mini 4 Pro that I showed here earlier says 34 minutes. Well, realistically, I'm usually getting about 26 or so, just because of different environmental considerations like the wind and the fact that I'm landing at 20%. You might want to consider getting a charging hub. This just makes things easier so that you can charge multiple batteries, not at once, but sequentially. So you can just pop all 3 in and then let them charge one by one. When you put in all 3, you don't actually charge all 3 at once. It still takes the same amount of time as if you were to charge them one by one. It just makes it more convenient. There's also the drone case that you should get so that you can properly store and secure your drone. A landing pad is also very useful to mark a home point and to have a clean surface to take off from. Try to avoid taking off from sand, dirt, any dirty surface because it will kick up the debris and potentially contaminate your motor windings inside. You can also consider getting a vest like right here to keep people away from disturbing you. A lot of people like to ask questions when they see drones. Camera filters like an ND4, ND8, ND16, ND32, and polarized allows you to get more camera control. And then an SD card, make sure you have a speed at least U3 or V30. If you look down here, this means it can write at a minimum of 30 megabits per second, and this is needed for 4K videos. And storage at least 64 gigabytes for practicality. Battery care, make sure to keep an eye on your battery when you're charging them and use the appropriate charger. You can also put your batteries in a fireproof bag just in case anything goes wrong. It will be contained within the bag. If you're not planning to use the battery for more than 4 or 5 days, I recommend that you store them at 60% capacity. So if the battery's at 100%, just pop in a drone and deplete it until it's 60%. Or if it's less than that, make sure you charge it up until 60%. Large depth of discharge also greatly shortens the battery longevity. This means that if you try to keep using the battery until single-digit percentages each flight, the overall charge cycle will be less, and your battery will not be able to hold as many cycles. So that's why I try to keep it at 20%, just to strike a practical balance between not deeply discharging it and having the battery last long enough. So Sensify, we offer several other services: photo videos, FPV, mapping, consulting, building and designing custom drones, as well as repairs. So if there's anything that you ever need, please feel free to reach out to us. If you have any questions, please take this time to ask your instructor. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy your lesson.